Woo! Big up to the boys, Fox and Shane. Set your minds free, no locks and chains. Do what you love, roll the dice. 50-50, we cold as ice. One thing cold, but a pretty time red. Can't let that shit down in my head, war gaming.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to Hobby Homies. We are your weekly tabletop podcast. I am Shane, hanging out with Fox.
That's me.
And of course, we've got Churchy.
In the void.
Today, we are, well, you are
That's me.
sitting down with Don, a legend from the Discord.
Yeah.
And you're going to have a big old chat.
We're going to have a chin wag. We're going to chop it up. We're going to talk about Halo. What's it called?
Halo?
Halo.
Just Halo. That's sick.
Yeah, you know the song by, who is it, Alicia Keys? No.
Martha Stewart.
Halo. What is it called?
Dead Zone.
No, yeah, basically. And well, you'll find out soon enough from the man who's played a little bit.
Yeah.
We haven't got our hands on it, so I was keen to know his thoughts after playing it at Gen Con.
Yep.
Also want to know what Gen Con's like.
Oh, man. That's like Gen Con and Adepticon are two cons that I would love to get to.
Yeah. Call me a con man because I would go to them.
Yep.
Thanks.
You're nice
And
too. You got him.
Do want to pick his brain a little bit about 3D printing and designing files and how that's going for him, how he got into it, why he's vibing it, etc. His plans for it, all that stuff. And you'll hear all that now. So
Me?
no, not you.
Ah.
The audience who are about to see the interview with Don.
So I have to wait and then watch this
Yeah.
and then hear it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
Like
fine.
you are going to be an audience member for the sake of this episode.
I like that.
Yeah. So just so you know,
Yeah.
for as little as $2 a month, you can get early access to videos.
Oh,
like
really?
This. Yeah, with our Patreon.
Oh, nice.
So I'd like
I'll
to
sign
see,
up.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
$2 a month, you say?
Yeah, that's the smallest tier. We go all the way up to whatever you want.
Oh, and I bet there's like fun rewards, like Discord roles
Yeah,
and like sneak peek behind the scenes stuff.
Well, it's funny you say rewards for the Patreon because you're going to get a little bit of a spoiler about a new reward coming to all of our Patrons.
I better
or some
join
of our
up real quick.
patrons in this episode with Don. So
Fantastic.
enjoy, open your ear holes, do whatever you want with your eye holes, but just listen and enjoy.
I will too. And we'll see you at the end.
Bye. Shibbity-bop-bop-a-shoopy-bop.
Boop, 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 boop.
Recording for the end or just keep rolling and then...
Bro, just cut it. What's up to you, man?
Don, how you
There we
doing?
go. Good. How are you?
I am
Thanks for
well.
having me.
No, thank you for coming on and joining us all the way from, what's your state?
Indiana.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
What-
it's not an exciting one,
Sure.
but
And
it is a state.
it is a state. It exists in a state of being a
It
state.
exists.
So, what's the time over there currently?
It is 7:30 p.m.
Yeah.
on Wednesday.
Okay, so the sun's setting for you and coming up for us. That's how we do it.
Yeah, that's how the world spins, I guess.
Yeah, that is how the world works. So, Don, this is what I hope to be the first of many interviews we have with homies from the Discord to give our wider audience an opportunity to see what kind of people we got in our little cesspool. And you are the one I've chosen to start it off.
I am honored, and it's always good to start low so that way you can ramp up, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's what we're doing. You're the bottom. I'm sorry, Don, you're the bottom.
Only one way to go from here.
That's all right. Let's climb up this hill together. Don, I want to know, first, I always find it interesting to know how people got into the hobby. So I want to know that about you, but I also want to know what you're doing now and how that transformation or that journey has gone for you.
Yeah, sure. So I was a Hero Quest kid. Right?
Okay.
That's probably the place to start. I had a friend who owned the game, and his brother, ran it for us, and that's kind of what got me past I would have been a little kid at that point, so that's what got me past the Monopolies and the Scrabbles and that kind of stuff.
That was your gateway game.
Yeah, that was my gateway game. It was awesome. We had a great time. I grew up in the Midwest, so playing D&D wasn't much of a thing when I grew up. You either got beat up or condemned to worshiping Satan or something.
Sure. I was trying to think, what contextually for us Australians, the Midwest, what does that mean? Is that like super? Is that like? Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to think.
Take the United States, reverse it by 20 years.
Yeah.
that's where we're at. So,
Sure.
so that was kind of my gateway. And then honestly, I didn't do a ton after that. I was a typical played sports and hung out with my friends and all that kind of stuff. So gaming kind of really went dormant until honestly till college.
Sure.
I was we had a really nice game store in town, and I happened to be walking by, and then I saw they had some games that looked like Hero Quest, in the window, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I remember that game. That was great, and I had played video games, I'd played Diablo and all that kind of stuff since then. So I stopped in and picked up a copy of, I think the first game I ever bought was Carcassonne.
Oh wow. There you go.
Yeah, that was the one the guy at the store recommended, and brought it back, and my girlfriend and I played it and had a great time. She's now my wife, but
Did you say she is now your wife?
she is now. Yeah, we're married now.
Carcassonne did it again.
And we still own the game. Yeah, if you're looking for some like an aphrodisiac, it's definitely not Carcassonne.
What is? Hang on, side tangent. What is it? What is the board gaming equivalent of an aphrodisiac? What game is that?
Oh man,
Shane's thinking.
yeah, I think we're
trying
all.
to think of what games that Caitlin's into.
Yeah,
Carcassonne would probably be one of them.
Carcassonne. We got one vote from Shane for Carcassonne.
Maybe it's the laying tiles. I don't know.
Yeah.
So we picked that up and we still own that. Still got the box downstairs. It's been heavily played. It's awesome. It's still got. I think I wrote the date in it when we bought it.
Oh, awesome.
Back when we did weird stuff like that. But
What wrote things down?
yeah, I wrote things down.
Yeah, that's weird. Yeah,
with a pencil or heaven forbid a pen.
pencil. What is Shane? Can you Google that real quick? Can you pull that up?
I'm spinning.
Yeah.
I'm spinning one
Oh.
in my fingers. Just
Oh, it's like
continuously,
it's like a fidget spinner.
yeah. Except you can. Yeah, that's pretty much all it is. So anyways, we played that, picked up a few more board games, and got really into board games in college.
Okay.
And we had Carcassonne, kind of all the main ones. We had Carcassonne. We had Ticket to Ride. Had a copy of Power Grid that I absolutely loved. Had a hard time finding anybody else to play it with, and that's when I started to realize that there's this balance between games that I want to play and games that people will also play.
Yeah.
But then it kind of stuck with board games for a while. I didn't really get into what you call the hobby games, like things you'd paint or that kind of thing until I graduated. A buddy of mine who I actually went to grade school with, he looked me up out of the blue. We had played some board games, but he kind of looked me up out of the blue and said, "Hey, I'm getting into this game called Hordes." This was when Hordes first came out. So I think this would have been War Machine, like second edition? Because I think the first edition didn't have any of the Hordes armies in it.
Oh, okay. So it was originally just War Machine.
Yes. I believe.
Sure. Yeah. I'm unfamiliar, so I was relying on you to be gospel.
Well, and I didn't play a ton of War Machine. We did play some Hordes though. So he and I pre-ordered it basically, and we were looking through the stuff. I knew nothing about this. I knew nothing about hobby gaming. I didn't know anything about what you'd consider wargaming other than Axis and Allies and stuff, board games that were like that. But I said, oh, what the hell? It sounds like fun and another excuse to hang out. So I picked up an Everblight box and I just fell in love with the hobby piece of it. I was like, now granted, I painted like shit. I mean, am I allowed to swear on this podcast?
We try and keep the swearing and the inappropriate jokes on the Hobby Homies podcast down as much as we can. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
okay.
Yeah, that'd be great. So if you just keep it fucking 100, then
okay, perfect.
Yeah.
I'm glad you said as much as we can. That helps clarify that.
Yeah.
So
go for it. Go wild.
My painting was just awful. I mean, it was craft paints, and I did it all in record time. And I remember showing up to the first game, and I was like, "Oh, I can't wait! This is going to be great." And he was an okay painter,
sure,
but by my standards, he was like a Golden Demon winner. I flopped him down. His stuff was dry brushed, and I was like, "Oh, those are great." And he's like, "All right, we'll put yours on the table." And I'm like,
I left them at home.
Okay, and it was just one of those moments where we're both like, oh, well, at least we get to play, So,
Yeah.
so we played a few games, and it was really fun, and that was kind of what got me into the hobby piece of it.
So I want to know, do you still have those miniatures?
I do not,
Oh man,
and
I would love to
and
see
it's
them.
I think I have a picture I can probably share in the Discord somewhere, but
Mm.
they were. I mean, I wish I still had them, and I always tell people, if I could give you one piece of advice, it's do not get rid of the first minis you ever paint,
Yeah.
because I did, and I regret it.
Yeah, I did the same,
So
and because I remember thinking people had told me that, and it's the kind of thing you go, "Oh, yeah, I know they say that, but this doesn't look like mine." Like I remember how bad this is. There's no point in keeping it. I really wish I had kept them because, yeah.
oh yeah,
So if you're hearing this and you're disregarding it, don't. We're
don't.
doubling down on it. Yeah,
I think at the time it was one of those where there was a guy in the group when we decided we weren't going to play anymore. There was a guy who was more into it who said, "Oh, I'd love to have those models," because I had collected quite a few at that point.
yeah,
And it was, and he's thinking, I can, at least I can strip them, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
and they so I ended up, not, I wouldn't say getting my money back, but I sold them for a decent amount of money. And I think at the time, I wish I would have said, hey, I can get this money another way. I
yeah,
should be keeping these if I knew what was coming, in the
yeah.
future, and how
Or
much more
keep
I
a
would be
couple of
getting
them.
into it.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, that was kind of my entry into hobby gaming, right? And from there, it kind of spiraled into just a lot of little games here and there. Still played a lot of board games.
yeah.
Um, I also had a copy of Hero Quest that I think my parents got rid of because it
Ugh.
just disappeared one time.
Oh no.
And well, I jumped in on the recent reprint, but had a played Descent, played Imperial Assault, like
Yeah.
played a lot of those, and kind of just kept up on the board games, and
Mm.
really hit back into minis heavier with X-wing.
Yeah. Okay.
That was
So
probably one.
So I feel like your journey is very similar to like a lot of wargamers, where you play a gateway game a bit early, like in your teens, or you see someone play Warhammer or something. Then you go in, have a bit of a break, and just hit the board games. It's accessible, it's easy, it's a lot of fun. And then someone drags you back in, and you've already had the experience of seeing kind of war games, playing video games that are strategic, and it kind of just all melts in. And then you get that one person that just hooks you in, and you get the right game, and then it's there. But you did that, so you played War Machine. You played Hordes for a little bit, and then kind of stopped. Was that because your friends stopped, or
Yeah, life just kind of got in the way.
yeah,
I think mostly on his end, it was harder to meet. He had kids earlier than I did, so he had a newborn in the house, and
yeah,
it just it was great. I mean, it was a wonderful time, but also like life just kind of gets in the way when you're trying to schedule these silly games,
yeah,
and you've got a crying baby and have to make do. So
yeah? And then so kind of tapered back off, went back into board games for a bit, and then did someone grab you into X-wing then, or did you just stumble upon it?
I don't I don't remember how I found it. Um, Honestly, all I remember was, and this was interesting because I can almost close my eyes and recreate the feeling. I somehow got into it, and bought the starter set, maybe because I thought the ships looked cool or something.
Yeah,
And this was back when I had a Facebook account, and I posted on our local game store, like, hey, I'm a new guy. I'm not new to town, but like I'm a new X-wing player. I saw on the page you meet on. I think it was Wednesday. It was Wednesdays. Um, would someone be willing to like teach me the ropes?
yeah,
And I consider myself a very extroverted person. I love being with people. I feel like I'm fairly outgoing.
yeah,
And that was one of the hardest things for me to do, was to hit send on that
yeah,
message,
yeah,
and because I don't know, you're putting yourself out there,
yeah,
and it was awesome. I mean, within, I don't know, 30 minutes, I had like 3 people come back and say, "Oh, we'd love to have you. You know, bring your stuff. You know, you can use our stuff." And at that point, it just spiraled, and it's just a group of people. It's a phenomenal group of people. A lot of them were
Yeah,
pretty competitive,
sure.
but if you weren't a big competitive player, they would adjust when they were playing, right?
They'd
So
play
they're not.
down. Yeah,
Well, they'd run a list that maybe they were, considering, but it was kind of out there or whatever. And
sure.
just a great group of people.
Yeah,
And that was when I got the heaviest into it. I mean, I was playing every week and
yeah. Wow.
just having a great time.
So it sounds like the local scene then for X-Wing was pretty good. Was that soon after the actual launch of the game?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. That was X-Wing First Edition. We had a
yeah.
really strong group. And it's funny because obviously with all the X-Wing stuff that's going on,
Mm,
they had, I don't know if it'd be Worlds or what, but they had a big tournament at Gen Con, and it's like you flip on the stream, and it's like I see somebody playing, on the table. I'm like, oh, I know that guy,
that's awesome. Yeah, that's
and
cool.
and but yeah, it was just we kind of got in it from the start, and I think that helped because
Yeah,
everyone was kind of on equal footing.
yeah.
Obviously, some people played more than others, but it was a great time.
There is a really good feeling about getting into a game at the start. Like you said, everyone's on equal footing. I remember jumping in to Shatterpoint like that and being like, it's so cool that I know all and own all the current releases. I'm familiar with the meta. Like, I don't have to play catch up, but I mean, I haven't played it for a bit, and there's been so many releases. If I jump back even now, being as evolved as I was, there's like kind of a lot of catch up, a lot of mental catch up. So
Yeah.
I think it just adds so much value when you jump into something from the start and can ride that wave with it. That's very cool.
Oh, for sure. And I think a lot of it too has to do with, I attribute a lot of the love and enjoyment I got out of X-Wing to the group,
Yeah.
right? And that
Yeah.
was that was something that I'm kind of doing now as I look for a more regular group again, because
Mm.
X-Wing, at least in our area, kind of died out during COVID, and then when it kind of spun back up, but then AMG kind of had it on life support for a while, and
Yeah.
a lot of the group had moved on to other games. Um, is that the concept that it's almost like the group matters? Well, I shouldn't say almost. At least to me, the group matters more than what you're playing.
Yeah. I
Right?
couldn't agree more. I feel like if the local community is strong enough, or I wouldn't say it needs to be strong, but if you've got the right people, like
Mhm.
if there's only 4 or 5 people in your local area playing this game, but they love it, they meet every week, they're really easy to play against, they're very relatable, they're on the same page as you out of what they want to get from their game. I feel like I'd play anything if the group was like that.
Yeah, yeah,
We,
wholeheartedly agree.
we did a poll. Can you unironically pull this up, Shane? You don't have to put it on the screen. I just want to know. We did a poll in the Discord where on the Patreon. Yeah, I've got Shane bouncing around now. It's just like he hasn't done this before. Now you know how he feels. 4 years later, where we asked like of the 4 pillars of gaming, which is the most important. We had lore, pretty miniatures, thriving local community, or what was the other one?
Support from the creator.
Support from the creator.
Can you see this?
I can see that. Yeah, my eyes aren't bad. And I was so surprised because in my mind, a thriving local community. I'm the same as you, Don. I would play any game that had that. Whereas I think it's the least voted on the poll.
Yeah.
People want
Yeah.
what do they want? Lore and pretty miniatures.
Lore, support,
Oh yeah,
pretty miniatures, and thriving are like least important.
thriving's the least important.
And
Yeah,
pretty miniatures is not far behind it.
sure. Yeah, people don't care if the miniatures don't look good. They want support from the creator and good lore. There you go. Fun fact. But yeah, I was interested because I'm the same. That's how I got into Infinity. Our local scene was just incredible. Everyone that was playing was like super keen to just be like, oh, pick one of my 4 armies that you think looks cool, play it. If you like it, then we can tell you how to build your own list and buy your own minis, and yeah, it's great. So,
I think
oh
I
yeah,
think
go.
so I've been kind of looking for that next game, and I think I found it. I haven't been able to make time lately just because of life, but there's a group in town that plays Alpha Strike.
Oh yeah.
Um, and I met up with them before Gen Con. They were going to play in is it like the Wolfnet tournament or one of the Alpha Strike tournaments, and same thing though. You show up and
Mm.
super welcoming, and just a great group of people. And it's one of those where I really enjoy BattleTech lore. I don't I haven't read a lot of the books or anything, but I enjoy the mechs. I enjoy the video games. Um, I really enjoy playing it. I honestly, of all the things I'm painting, it's probably one of the least
Yep.
most or least enjoyable things for me to paint.
Sure.
But I still I don't dislike it, but
hmm
it's, if I could rank it, it wouldn't be at the top. But just that idea of having a good group of people who are having a good time, and they're helping each other play, and it's just a really collaborative experience, right? And it just feels like a good place to be. And so I think BattleTech's going to become, I'd like it to become my next game, especially if it's with that group, right?
Sure. Yeah.
If they move into Classic, some of them play Classic. I'd check it out. Classic, I think, would make my brain hurt after a
Yeah.
day of work. But you know what? If it's the same group of people, I'd do it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And that's the difference, I suppose. Like as we mentioned, I feel like there are games that maybe in isolation you wouldn't love, but I feel like actually rolling the dice and going through the mechanics of a game accounts for 20% of the gaming experience. The rest is you hanging out with some other people, rolling dice, having a good time. The crazy situations that can happen in games because there's so much RNG. I feel like that's 80% of it. So if you get a good crew to do that, you can make up for the rest if the game's not too heavy or whatever.
I think for me, that's one way to gauge the environment, right? Is
Mm.
most of the guys in X-wing were phenomenal. You'd have a couple players where if they'd blank out too many turns in a row and they'd get frustrated, which
Yeah,
rightfully so. If you're in a tournament, that's super frustrating. But
sure.
we're having a good time. Who cares?
Yeah.
But when last time we played Alpha Strike, or when it was actually, it was the first time we played. I had I think it was a catapult. I don't remember. It was a heavy mech that I had a lot of points in, and my opponent like shoots it from across the map, rolls two sixes and crits, and then rolls another two sixes, which is a cockpit shot, and basically
Yeah.
just blows the thing in one turn.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh man, that's awesome. And he's like, oh my god, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, what are you sorry for? That was hilarious.
Yeah.
You know,
That's what it's
like
about.
sure, it's an uphill battle, but like whatever, we're having a good time,
Yeah.
And I think that's when you have a game that's like that, you really it's easy to just get immersed into and kind of fall into.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, I wanted to ask you how you obviously X-Wing has a special place in your heart, I imagine. And I want to know what if you were to wave your magic wand, do two things, how would you fix X-Wing and make everyone start playing it again? Because the idea of it's so cool. And it just feels like it's slowly fallen off, and then AMG's recent axing of Armada just kind of feels like it's thrown a dark spot onto X-Wing as well.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't want to turn this into like the AMG conspiracy theory podcast, but I know,
Episode 2.
That's your new YouTube whatever title.
Oh yeah. And we'll make the thumbnail.
10 things longtime X-wing player does wants you to know. Yeah,
AMG conspiracy. They did
yeah.
what?
Yeah. But if I could fix it, I think this will relate to those four pillars those four options you talked about. One of them is support, right?
Yep.
And again, I don't know the inner workings of the business. I just know that at some point X-wing was passed on, and it seemed like the support for it kind of died off.
Yeah.
I know they made some changes from a rules standpoint. They went to X-Wing 2.5 or whatever, and I played it a few times. It's fine. I really enjoyed X-Wing second edition much more than first. But I don't think the game, maybe to a competitive player, but to a casual player, the game wasn't really that busted. It's just like AMG stopped returning your phone calls,
Yeah.
Um,
And there's only so many
so
times you can pick up the phone and keep trying.
yeah, and it's tough because we've got a phenomenal local game store in town. The owner and his wife run it, and they're just great people, and they've got good stock. And
Mm.
but when I put myself in like his shoes, I don't want to stock a dying product. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Which then means, okay, now we're showing up to the game store to play. We're going to be playing a game that you can't really support the store with,
Yeah.
right? Because and
Yeah.
that feels weird, especially when you're like buddies with the guy. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah, definitely.
um, so I think if I could wave my wand, I would fix whatever the business problem was.
Yeah.
I, I don't know what it is. I just
Yeah.
whatever it was.
Yeah.
Because I don't think the game was that bad.
Yeah, I thought the pre-painted models was something that was pretty rare, and had definitely its own allure as well. It's kind of like the final selling point. If you're like, hey, do you want to play a Star Wars themed game? Sure. Do you want it to be dogfights in space? Oh my gosh, yes. And do you want the models to already be painted and now it's more like a boxed game, a board game? Yeah, of course. That's like the final tipping point. It would have been for me if there was a local scene and you also know that the game's not on the downward trend.
Yeah, I mean, I had people I played X-wing with that weren't wargamers at all. They just
Yeah,
love Star Wars,
yeah,
right? And what did we do? Well, we didn't get a bunch of named pilots and a bunch of upgrades and proton torpedoes and stuff. We just got some generic X-wings and some generic TIE interceptors and just blew each other up. It
yeah.
was a great time.
So recently, you have, it feels like you've sort of added a different element of your hobby, and that is 3D designing. And I just want to know how you moved over to that. And now it feels like you're just pumping stuff out. It feels like instead of painting models, you're designing them. Recently, you've
It's true.
Yeah. Recently, you've built like a little card holder. You've built an entire terrain set. You've built some ships for like some Warfleet FTL ships. So take us through your journey into that.
It's I feel like it's going to be pretty scattered, but we'll try to make as much sense of it as we can.
Sure.
So I think before I started designing, I got into 3D printing.
Yeah.
I'm a engineer by training. It's not what I do now, but I spent a long time as a mechanical engineer and just did a lot of design. I have a lot of history, like designing functional things, right?
Yeah.
Not artistically, but functionally. And so those card sleeves are a great example of like, I had a problem, I made a solution. That's great.
Yeah.
So I started 3D printing and fell in love with like the tinkering piece. I had an Ender 3 that I think Spaz Frags can probably, another homie in the Discord can probably empathize with that. If I looked at it sideways, it would stop working.
So it was like a Gen
but
1 Ender 3, was it?
yeah, with some Frankensteining that I had done to it. But
Yeah.
and at that time in my life, I enjoyed that. I wanted to do that. And I printed other people's stuff.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, and then I started tinkering, and then I got into resin. Started doing the same thing with resin minis. Although that printer was a totally different experience. The Mars 3, I mean, you just plug it in and it just runs.
Yeah.
There's no tinkering at all, which kind of opened my eyes to why does this have to be so damn hard?
Yeah.
So then I kind of got in. I started looking at some of the 15 millimeter stuff using other people's minis. I was doing 15 millimeter fantasy at the time. I had no idea what I wanted to do with it. It was just one of those like, oh, I'm going to make a few forces and mash them together,
If you see cool files, I feel like you find a way to make it work. You're like, I need them. I need to paint them. I need to own them. I have no idea what I'm going to do with them, but they're definitely going to sit on my shelf because they look sweet.
Yeah. There was a time, and I think it's how I got my nickname on the Discord. There was a time when I actually had no unpainted miniatures.
That's exactly how you got your nickname, the chosen one.
This was before I had my resin printer, and I'm done. That's never going to happen again.
Yeah.
Um, but no, so I started looking at 15 millimeter stuff, and there wasn't as much 15 millimeter stuff available from a terrain standpoint.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was there, but it's not as popular, and it was harder to scale FDM stuff. Um, so I was like, well, I used to draw a lot as a kid, and I know how to do 3D modeling and CAD software. I wonder if I could just sculpt something.
Mm.
And it's funny, I still have that file, which is funny to go back and it's kind of like your first paint
I
administrator.
was going to
I had
say that. Yeah.
my first STL file, and it's not bad, but when I look at it, and I don't even think my new stuff's all that great, but when I look at it compared to my new stuff, it's radically different.
Yeah.
I made a little, like a stone, I think it was like a portal, like a doorway looking
I remember
thing.
it. Yeah. You,
Yeah,
you
so
you painted that as well, didn't you?
I did.
Yeah.
I have no idea where it is. It's lost to the closet void of
Yep.
hobby storage. Um, and that kind of just at that point just like snowballed.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my god, this is fun. I kind of I was doing it on my tablet. I work on a computer all day, so like for me personally, the last thing I want to do is like be in front of a computer screen.
Yeah.
But I could take this tablet and curl up in a chair, go sit out on the back porch. When I'm on calls like with the like in the hobby hangouts, I'm almost always sitting on the porch if it's warm. So I could
Yeah,
go
that's
sit
cool.
out there and sketch, and it just kind of snowballed from there into whatever I feel like I needed at the time.
There was a feeling that I can't really explain, almost euphoria, when I tried my hand at 3D modeling. I was garbage. I just jumped on Udemy and followed a little course, and it helped you build a fish. And it was just 3D modeling. So I made this little fish. It looked hideous, and I just took that across, turned it into an STL, printed it, and it worked. It just printed. It was FDM. It printed flawlessly, which was magic. And when that had finished, I was like, "Oh wow, this thing only exists because I made it, and now it physically
Yes.
exists." I took something that was like
Yes.
create new project on whatever CAD program I was using, and then now it physically exists because I did that, and it was incredible. And I did get addicted for a while, and then it got frustrating. So
I know I can pinpoint. I know exactly that feeling
yeah,
because you took something, or sorry, you took nothing and you created something, and
yeah,
that full stack is. And I think when as I 3D print things, I can print other people's stuff, and believe me, there are amazing designers out there. I mean,
oh
just
yeah,
people that do it for a living who are
ridiculous.
just incredible.
Yeah,
And I can make that physical, and then I can paint it and I can play with it, and that's really cool. But there's another level of satisfaction. Like recently, the Halo stuff that or Dead Zone and Halo stuff that you guys put up on the Patreon.
yeah,
Um, to look at a table and like play the game with my son and like look down and be like, I conceptualized that, like I sketched it in 2 dimensions, with a pencil.
yeah.
Then I sculpted it, and then I 3D printed it, and then I painted it, and now we're playing with it. Like it's hard
Insane.
to capture that feeling, or
Yeah,
describe it, I guess.
and also you sit there and you're like, no one else in the world is playing on this terrain right now. Uh,
Yeah,
it only exists in this living room,
yeah,
which is cool.
yeah.
Until you graciously gave it to all of our patrons.
And
So
it's funny you say that because that's one of the things. So when I first started this, I wasn't sure if I was going to get burned out on it. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
And I really got philosophical with myself when I started and said, how can I avoid this piece? Because I started looking at, hosting a cults page or hosting a My Mini Factory page or hosting an Etsy store and putting up printed stuff, or whatever. And I told myself, if I limit myself to only sculpting things that I personally want or like a
mm,
friend wants,
mm,
then I don't feel like I don't feel like I have anyone to answer to. Like, I got to get my,
There's
got to
no
get my stuff done this
deadlines.
month. There's no
Yeah.
deadlines. And then whenever it's done, if I like it, I got stuff that I've sculpted that's never going to see Colts 3D ever, because I was
Yeah.
like, I'm not proud of that, But if if uh, if I like it, then I can throw it up, and if I make a few bucks here and there, it's
Perfect.
I'm not retiring, but it buys my filament, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
um, that's kind of how I look at it. So that has helped me that's helped me stay engaged with it, is
Yeah.
this idea of not making it a job.
For sure. And I think you've got the right balance too of dancing between different projects, but also seeing them through. So like a
Try
lot of
to.
people could create that terrain that you have for like Dead Zone, Halo, and go, all right, I've done the core set. Now I need to do some extra scatter and maybe like this little bit of an expansion pack type thing, and do this and kind of just keep building on it and reach a point where you get burnt out and you're sick of that project.
Mhm.
Whereas you saw that to completion and you said, cool, that looks great. That's enough. Time to make some FTL ships.
Now,
So
that being said, I am actually elbow deep in wave 2 of the Halo terrain.
perfect.
But yeah,
Well,
hot
we're
take.
excited. Yeah.
But it's one of those where I have enough to play with now, so I don't feel like I have to do it.
Yeah,
This is
exactly.
more of it's more of an aesthetic change, right?
Yeah.
It's more weird sculptures and geometric patterns and stuff that wasn't necessarily in the first set. Just because I thought it'd be kind of fun.
Also, for those listening, your Colts page is linked in the description of this video, but it's also pinned to our 3D printing Discord channel, which we have in there for those who like 3D printing and want to get advice from the master himself, the Don. Hobbyhomies.com, click the Discord button, jumping the 3D printed channel, and you can hit us up, chat to us. I don't know anything anymore, but Don and there are some other legends in there that know a stack, an absolute
Yeah,
stack.
I feel like I used to be one of the core 3D printing brains in the Discord, but now you've got some folks in there that just really make it sing.
Yeah.
Like the person from Oz Wargaming who just does it, commercially, right? It's like, oh, I
Yeah.
got a question, like let's ask Oz Wargaming,
Yeah.
But
Probably
you've got
knows
a
how to
really good,
tweak. Probably knows how to tweak a machine on account of having 30 of them or something.
yeah, yeah. So because there's a warehouse full.
Yeah.
But no, it's a really cool place to hang out, see what other people are doing, and help. It's fun to help somebody out.
Yeah. Don, thank you for your time. We have so much more to talk about, so we're going to have you back on because I want to know all about Flashpoint, how you're finding that. I want to know you're in a similar boat where you're wargaming as a dad and with a family and trying to figure that out and balance wargaming with 3D designing and printing and painting models. So we're going to have you back on and we want to talk about all those things, but we're out of here for now. I need a beer. The sun's out. The sun's out.
It's not here anymore. No, it's
Yeah,
gone.
you gave it to me. Thank you.
You
Thank
can
you
have
for
it.
your son. Thanks for
Awesome.
jumping on the show. It's been a great catch up, Don. You are a respected and loved member of the Discord. We love having you in there. And thank you to all of your help over the I know this. You've been in there for over 2 years now.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. It's been a while.
Yeah.
It's been long enough that I've lost count.
Yeah. A couple of days ago, I looked and I wanted to see how many Discord messages you had sent so that I could embarrass you with the sheer volume. But
it's a lot. It's a lot.
It's a lot. I forgot what it was. It's over 10,000. So,
we
thank you.
don't need to talk about that.
We don't need to talk about specifics.
We can edit that part out. Yeah.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. I mean, this has been really fun. You guys are great. I've always loved the show, and I don't see a reason why not to continue loving the show in the future.
We'll find a way.
Yeah, you could try. I guess I appreciate the effort. But no, it's great. But I think even more so, and you guys have talked about this on the show, is the group of people you've got in your community is just phenomenal. I mean,
Yeah.
just fantastic. I mean, you got people from all over the world who are into different things, just different hobbies, different walks of life. And I think it's really cool to hear what everyone's doing and to get to interact with folks like that. And you've just done a really good job of building that community.
Yeah, we take full credit, although we don't feel like we actually did it, but we'll take it. We'll take it. Thanks again, Don. We will see you in mere minutes in the Discord, no doubt. And until next time, toodles.
Awesome. Thanks.
Woo!
Yep.
Golly, that was something.
Yeah, I was something else altogether.
You know what I liked? I liked the words that you said.
Oh, thanks, man. I like the words that Don said. Because
Yeah, me
Don
too.
is a legend. He's a legend of the Discord. The people love him. He's the people's Don.
He is the Don Juan Don.
Yeah, which means one. So
Yep.
he is the only one.
Well,
the chosen one.
Yeah, of course he is.
Yeah, which we gave him. That's his Discord nickname, I believe.
Yep, because
For-
at one stage he had no backlog.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Hmm.
That's crazy. Anyway, hopefully you enjoyed. That's like enjoying and joining in.
Sorry, I just saw Max just like
Oh, look at him. He's got his head between your legs. Now's your chance to choke him out.
he only does this when I have dinner.
Oh, hello, Max. So thank you for tuning in. Don is one of the legends, like we said, in the Discord. Jump in our Discord, please. We love to get to know our homies, as we just did.
Yeah.
It's our favorite part of doing this, so please jump around it. And a big shout out to all of our patrons who will get that spicy little reward we spoke about earlier. Well, we can't remember what tier it's going for, but anyway, you'll find out. It'll be a Patreon update.
It'll be in there. Massive
be in
shout
there.
out to these legends. For $2 a month, early access, like we've said numerous times this episode.
Yep.
And you get your name up here like all these absolute legends. And of course, legendaries, MJ, Moose, Fatboy, and Tom. Real one, Numa, that's you. The Goats, Burnsy, Fallen Dinosaur, Hockers, Gridlock, Journeyman, and Matty Matt.
We got the OGs, Souls, Fishman, IU Warrior, Churchy, Rad, Ollie, Pinny, Aggro, Don Hua, Don, you legend. Pure Blind, Jackson V, Mini War, Mutt, Oz War Gaming, Analog Line, Tim, and
Big
Roach. You legends, it's nice to be able to speak and have you hear us during the Patreon scroll. We'll see you next week.
Hooroo.
Big up to the boys, Fox and Shane. Set your minds free, no locks and chains. Do what you love, roll the dice. 50-50, we cold as ice. One thing cold, but a penny turn red. Can't let that